Okay, now continuing on with the topic of penis issues, let's discuss a little bit about penis size. Some common phallic fallacies. The word phallic is another word for penis. So some common myths about penis size. You know, there are a lot. There are myths that you can tell how big a man's penis is based on his nose or his hands or his feet or some other body part, his height, something like that. It turns out that penis size is unrelated to those things. Penises are typically within sort of a range of sizes. And so, you know, it's probably independent of hand size, nose size, anything like that. There's no external cue that you can really rely on. One thing that'll make the penis seem larger is if the man is thinner, because I don't want to say fat on the stomach, but fat on the stomach sort of surrounds the base of the penis and would make it look a little bit smaller. But other than that, there's no external cue that would actually give us any indicator about penis size. So that doesn't really work. How about the classic racial distinctions? I found this map on the internet, always a great source of good, reliable stuff. Although I realize my lecture's on the internet. So, So first off, I want you to notice on the legend that these measurements are in centimeters. There's about 2.5 centimeters per inch. So for us, you know, people in the US who don't know how to use the metric system, that would be me. The numbers that you're seeing, you know, 17.93, you're like, what kind of penis is 17.93 inches long? And that's not, it's in centimeters. So you'd want to divide that number by 2.5 to get, you know, something in inches. But see how this map is showing, you know, the dark green has the longest average penis size. The light green has the next. The peach is sort of in the middle. The salmon is the next smallest. And then we have the red that is the smallest worldwide. And doesn't this just sort of fit stereotypes about race? It just kind of corresponds to that. I'd like to put it this way. I always like to ask the men in the class this, but since we're on an online thing, you probably can't vote. But here we are. How many men have had their penises measured so that they could be added into this national data? Yeah. Probably none of them. None of the men in this class have probably had their penises measured. I'm going to say probably not. I think this is just what we like to call stereotyping depicted on this map. And isn't it fitting exactly what our stereotypes are? That black men have larger penises and that Asian men have smaller penises, right? Those are myths. They aren't really accurate. In fact, I have some actual data. Okay, so I mentioned way back at the beginning, first lecture, that I use the scientific language in class because it's always, you know, it's usually Latin-based or Greek-based, and it's sort of always the correct words. But they aren't necessarily the correct words to use in polite company, are they? Because look at the names that we have for the different racial groups. We don't usually use the word racial anymore to describe groups. We're usually talking about populations. Rather than, and so some people have started to separate ethnicity and call it that, except for ethnicity implies some aspect of culture, and we're talking about something biological here, so it's all very confusing, and what is the correct word for what? But here what we have is basically anthropologists have historically said that there are 3 basic races. They are Negroid, Caucasoid, and Asian. In fact, a lot of times Asian is called Mongoloid, right? Because Mongolia is sort of in the center of Asia. So altogether, we can say that this is, these terms are not super flattering, but they are sort of like the antiquity labels that we've given to humans based on population areas and stuff. Caucasoids, you know, are typically going to be of European descent and over on in toward the Caucasus Mountains. Caucasus Mountains? Yeah, Caucasus Mountains. And then we have some mixed groups where we now have a little bit more specificity. So whereas we have, Mongoloids would be sort of like the original Asian group, but then we have like Amerindians, which are American Indians who contain Mongoloid bloodlines with also other mixed components to it. It's all very confusing, but you get this general sense, right? What I want you to get from this table is not the names that they use. That is not the important thing. What I want you to look at over on the right, you see a column labeled T. So a T is a statistic that we can compute to determine whether the average score for one group is different from the average score of the other group. So in row 1, we're comparing Negroids to European Caucasoids, and we're measuring them on penis length. And this actually is being conducted scientifically, like they literally measured the penises. In this particular study, Lynn 2012, in this particular study, they actually measured a lot of different components of penis size. They looked at length, they looked at girth, they looked at erect penises, they looked at flaccid penises, they looked at all the different ways that you could possibly measure a penis. This is just one table of comparisons. So when the T statistic is less than 1, when after we can make the calculation, if the number is less than 1, it is absolutely not significant. And what you're seeing in that T column is that none of the comparisons are greater than 1. That's for sure. And most of them are around 0, which means that there is not only is there not a significant difference between the groups, that means there is no difference between the groups. The scores are virtually the same. So I think this nice statistical, scientific assessment of penis size can dispel any idea that that a person's racial or ethnic or population, of origin can help us to predict penis size. Okay. Well, since we had some fun with maps on the internet, I found this map on the internet that shows penis size by U.S. state. So now the circles that you're seeing are population sizes. So you see, for example, for those of us who are in Washington, you see the big circle being over the Seattle, Tacoma area, right? So they just are denoting where the big population centers are. What you want to look at is the color of the state. And, the greener the state, the larger the relative sizes of the penis of the people in those states, I guess is what they're trying to say. Because, if your state is number 1, then that's the state with the largest penises. I can't tell if, Oregon, New York, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, I can't tell which one is like the darkest green. It doesn't matter because this is stupid anyway, because there's no way that they've measured enough penises in all these different states to have any kind of reliable, state-based differences. And anyway, who cares? This is all stupid. I feel like this might have been designed to just sort of insult certain areas of the country is what I think this is intended to do. So we're going to blow past that. Okay, never mind. Okay, so something that is a good predictor of penis size is actual sexual orientation. So I got this from Bogart and Hirschberger. They did a study in 1991. And again, notice all the different ways that they measured the penises. Estimated erect size. So that's the person saying how large their penis is when it's erect. And then the rest are measured by the researcher. So we've got the measured flaccid penis size, so non-erect, measured erect penis size, measured circumference of the flaccid penis, and measured circumference of the erect penis. So we have these different measures. And first off, it's kind of interesting to look at the estimated erect size and compare that to the measured erect size. And it's kind of interesting because the estimated has a smaller average score than the measured. So, were the men being modest? Do they not have a correct, assessment of their own penis when it's erect? I don't know. So you'll see that you have homosexuals on the left pair of columns, and you have heterosexuals on the right pair of columns. Again, this is in scientific language. This is what we do. We use the Latin-based words. So it's, just the current terminology is rarely ever used in this kind of scientific study. So try not to feel like they're being offending, trying to be offensive. They're just using the Latin-based words. So look over there on that right-hand T column. Remember I told you it needs to be at least a 1 for there to be, a significant difference between the two groups. And so what you can see is clearly these T's are all greater than 1. And then if you look at the next column over that's labeled P, that's telling you your significance level. And so for us to consider an outcome significant with these kinds of statistical analyses, that p-value needs to be less than or equal to 0.05. So if you look at all these p-values, those numbers are all less than 0.05, right? And actually what that number is showing you is 1 out of 10,000 samples would we expect this pattern to happen purely by accident. Like, this looks like a pretty solid result that we can feel pretty confident about. So what is it showing us? Basically, if you compare the X bar column for the homosexuals to the X bar column for the heterosexuals, you see that in every measurement, homosexuals have larger measurements than heterosexuals. So we do have one thing that might accurately predict penis size, and that would be sexual orientation. On average, homosexual men have larger penises than heterosexual men. So that's something, but it's not any of the normal stereotypes that I think we carry around with us about penis size. So in general, one of the big questions is, do female partners care about their male partner's penis size? And in general, women don't care enough about penis size to let that override, let's say they're already in love with their partner and, all those kinds of things. A smaller penis is not going to, be a deal breaker for most women. It doesn't mean that women don't care at all, but it means that on average, there are things that are more important to women than penis size, as far as even sexual satisfaction. It doesn't matter how large a man's penis is. It doesn't necessarily improve the likelihood of their female partner reaching orgasm just through coitus, penile vaginal sex. There's got to be other stuff going on anyway. So it's probably much more important to men than it is to female partners of men. And perhaps in homosexual couples where both members are male, it might be more important to them, but on average, female partners might complain about a small penis in a person that they've broken up with, but they hardly ever complain about a small penis in somebody who they are still with. And that doesn't necessarily mean that, only men with large penises have partners. What it means is that women tend to be in relationships for more complicated reasons than just penis size. So I hope I said that in a nice enough way to imply that penis size is not top of the list for female partners as far as what they're looking for in male partners. Okay. So we've been talking about penises pretty thoroughly. Let's talk a little bit about what makes a penis erect. So here we have see-through structures so that we can see what's inside of a penis. On the left-hand side, you see these, I don't know what color are those, lavender structures. And then there's a pink structure on the bottom of it. If you look over at the right, you see a cross-section that shows you what those structures look like. So if we look at the very bottom outside structure, we see the scrotum, and this one's been, as Dr. Evil calls it, shorn. Here we have a shorn scrotum. And yeah, so the hair is not present. That's typically there in an adult male. But part of the reason why the hair is removed for this picture is that we could really see that those sort of ridges that are present on the scrotum, those are where I'm sorry, I'm having inappropriate thoughts like it's kind of like having a six-pack on your abs, right? Because you can see the muscle structure through the skin of the scrotum. And I don't know if comparing that to a six-pack is the smartest idea I ever had, but I'm sorry it came out. So now let's get to those purple structures that are in the penis. Those are called the Corpora Cavernosa. Corpora means that it's plural because there's two, right? Corpora Cavernosa. Cavernosa. Well, it sounds like cavern, doesn't it? It's full of cavernous, air pockets, basically. And so in a flaccid penis, it's just air. Like there's nothing in those pockets. During erection, blood comes flowing into those pockets and fills them and gets trapped in there. And that's what causes erection. To support the Corpora Cavernosa, we have the Corpus Fungiosum, sorry. Corpus callosum's in our brain. Sorry, I didn't mean to all of a sudden say brain. I was thinking about why the word spongiosum isn't showing up in my picture on the right. So Corpus Fungiosum is the pink part in this picture. Everything's white in reality, but they color coded it to make it easier for us. So you see that there are three kinds of, these cavern-filled structures that are going to fill up with blood during erection. The Corpora Cavernosa tend to fill first. The Corpus Fungiosum fills as erection continues, and we'll talk a little bit about going from the excitement phase into the plateau phase when Corpus Fungiosum really fills up. And there's also spongy tissue in the glands of the penis, and it's actually connected to the Corpus Fungiosum. And so the glands will become more and more filled with blood as arousal continues. And so the Corpora Cavernosa start the process of erection and hold, most of the rigidity, but the penile glands will be filled by the spongiosum tissue that will give the, discoloration that happens with the penile glands during erection and stuff like that. Now you'll notice that the urethra is encased in the Corpus Fungiosum. And so one of the things that happens during erection is that you can't really urinate, and the Corpus Fungiosum helps to achieve that goal of not being able to urinate during erection. You kind of can if you're not at plateau phase. You can urinate, but during sexual excitement and plateau, the urethra will not allow urine to pass. It will only allow semen to pass. Now you'll notice that there's a lot of veins and arteries that serve the penis, the little red things and the little blue things. So you've got blood that comes flooding in, and then there's a little valve on those arteries that block it and keep that blood in the penis, and that's what causes erection. The rigidity is provided by, again, I hope you guys can see my mouse when it pops up here. See this whitish tissue in the cross-cut picture of the penis? This whitish tissue around it is called fascia, and it's kind of the consistency of cellophane, like plastic wrap that you would put over a bowl and put in the fridge. It's kind of that consistency, and so it's pliable. It's easy to move around when the penis is flaccid. But when blood starts to rush into the Corpora Cavernosa and later the spongiosum, that fascia prevents the penis from expanding out sideways, right? So it keeps it in that rigid size, and therefore it becomes hard rather than flexy anymore. So there's no bone or anything like that in a penis. It's strictly this, sort of hydraulic pressure that's occurring inside the penis. It's managed by the fascia that doesn't let it expand outward, and so it can only get more rigid. That's all it can really do. After, the erection is over, the valves that have been keeping the blood in will release and let the blood back out. And that's how the penis returns to its flaccid state. There was this really interesting article in Discover magazine about this woman who she collects all sorts of different kinds of roadkill as long as they're male, and she takes them back to her lab and tries to figure out how different penises across different species really work. Most of them use bones for erection, but human penises need to have the flexibility and stuff during the flaccid periods, and so a different kind of sort of engineering project had to be undertaken to make male penises be able to become erect, but then to be quite flaccid while they're not erect. And this is the solution that nature came up with. All right, let's go ahead and take a break here, and we'll come back and we'll talk about the internal structures next.